If government is not adequately able to fund the research in the areas it determines to the extent where very, very impactful research can be done, and therefore both public and to some extent private facilities have to rely on grant funding, and a lot of that grant funding comes from the global north and the global west, where they probably want to have a say in what it is that you are researching to some extent. Should government, I suppose, let me ask the question twofold. One, who should be funding research in South Africa, particularly as Rian suggests that Africa should be our focus in terms of what we're researching? And two, given the limited resources that government has, should they be driving the direction of research as much as they seem to be in the sector right now?
It goes back to the bumps in the road that I spoke right about. There's so many pressures on funding. I mean, we spent the first part of this discussion talking about students who don't have, so there's a pot of money, and I think it's yes, we should be funding research more, but then if that money is then going to be taken away from that undergraduate student who earns a bursary, then we shouldn't. So I don't know, really. I can't give you, to say, yes, they should. I mean, I think the point that Gloria made about the PhD students that don't have the ability to work full time, I mean, that could be, for me, possibly a quick win in the sense that it's not a gigantic amount of money, but at least it's creating a pool of new researchers that can come into the system, can create communities. There are programs that they can link up with, and I mean, there's a new professors program, there's research associations, there's a vibrant possibilities for that constituency that wouldn't be that expensive. So maybe that's a way in which they can build research that isn't going to break the education bank. I'm just thinking about that now as we talk.
You see that we don't have an infinite pot of money for the country, really. So coming back to what we were saying earlier, we do so much research under the Publish or Perish banner that gets incentivized and funded. Maybe we should start looking at what kind of research gets incentivized. With a limited pool of money, let's not incentivize every academic who puts out 10 pages in an accredited journal. Let's incentivize if it makes a contribution to the national agenda, to meeting the NDP goals. If there's an impact that can be fed back into society and into the country, and maybe that should be out. And it just, for me, it's a problem because if we want to push a research agenda, you can't go out. I don't believe we can go out and ask for more money. Higher education, what's the rumor? The budget's going to be cut by 10%. Then that's going to come down to all of the research that's already been cut. So maybe we must look at getting bang for our bucks.
For me, what would be ideal? That we output a better quality of curriculum and delivery from basic education, where come matric, we have space, adequate space for people who are going to higher education space. We have the ability, the potential, the drive, for them to hopefully learn in spaces that this economy needs, preferably rather than, and I won't mention degrees by name, but other degrees that are populated that, quite frankly, I don't think are bringing us as much value in this economy as we should. I would love a situation, and I know you said earlier that we're not in Norway, but I would love a situation where the universities are not outputting people who are going to be working as bank tellers. That, to me, does not make sense. It doesn't make sense that we are pouring so many of taxpayers' money and private funding for the private higher education space to effectively output people with BCom degrees who will then work for a bank as a bank teller. That's not where you should be getting the qualification for that. I dream of a world where we go to these institutions and you're allowed to dream up a new airline that can operate in this. And in order for you to do that, you have to have the space to think. And I think there's so much pressure on you guys, in part because of what society needs, to actually graduate undergraduates that will be employable tomorrow. That's not the space in the work of universities, surely not. Universities should be places where you think, and not where you're teaching a practical skill that, quite frankly, TVET colleges in the old system, technicons used to.
That's exactly it.
The core difference between education and training has been lost, and that's the bottom line.
And we've elevated that education.
Correct.
And a lot of it was the merger. Let's get rid of all the technicons and make everybody big universities.
And I worked at a form of technicon for a very long time. And they were doing fantastic work, as in what we would call career-oriented education. But suddenly there was this huge pressure to produce PhDs, and it's totally destabilized the staff. They didn't have the background. They became nervous. Suddenly, instead of being excellent teachers in their field, they became very weak researchers, as they saw themselves. And I think it was very sad. And it's not to and I mean, that doesn't deny the research-based teaching that you're talking about. That's a different thing. But the rush for a qualification and the anxiety about producing a paper is really putting.
And I think what's happened is that the so-called comprehensive and the universities of technology are still not filling that gap because the kind of dominance of the notion of a degree means that now a diploma is undervalued. So you've got the same problem. But one of the things I did want to say about research is I think, and I'm being very selfish and self-centered in this, but I think we have to be careful not to lose the power of blue sky research because not all research can be directed at, a problem out there. I mean, I say I'm selfish because I have a PhD in African literature, which you would think, what job are you going to get with a PhD in? Well, none. No. You get this question around all the time. So, and I studied law, and I dropped out 3 modules from the end because I thought, I've learned everything I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the rest. So I wasn't interested in just getting the degree. I actually realized I'm not going to practice law. Without those 2 things, I wouldn't be able to do the job I do now. But there's nowhere that it says these qualifications, this little bag of things that you've done, research in this, research in that, means you are now X. And I think that is what we have lost. We have lost this education for education's sake, and then the work will follow. We've lost that because we are trying to fill the gap that you've said with a degree, which is not necessarily suited to that gap.
And we have to remember we're training people, as they always say, for jobs that don't exist yet. They're nowhere. So,
Not mine.
The other reality is...
But it didn't exist when I was at school. At no point would anybody have said to me, oh, you want to be in quality assurance? Fabulous. Do a master's in African literature and drop out to an LLB, you'll be saved.
The other reality is we're seeing, and granted in South Africa is not to the same extent perhaps as other economies, but what's called the gig economy, where as a young person, I decide now that I need often a short course that will give me the requisite skill in order to be able to do that. And once I am in that space and I'm doing what I need to do, what is the next short course I need to then take me to the next whatever level or dream or whatever the case may be, which I'm not seeing in the numbers that we probably will realize in the future, but we are seeing an increase in that, where the idea of a 3-year, 4-year degree is no longer as attractive or useful, for that matter, to a modern-day matriculant than, that's what I need, let me get in there. I then need this, let me get, and so forth and so on. Are you running the risk of being obsolete?
Oh, no. That's fine.
Why not?
Looking forward to it.
I know.
Cool. You keep thinking that.
Okay.
So, if you do a degree, within 7 years, you'll earn 4 times more than your peers.
No.
Correct. Within 10 years, you would have doubled that. And if you're one of the people that did their PhD before that, 45, you will have a lifetime earnings of 7 times more than that person that never did that. Okay. So the reality is it's financially irresponsible for you not to get the green cap. Okay. The issue, though, is we, once again, confusing training and education. That's an education. Okay. Education takes you places. I sit in boardrooms every day. Education is what gets you to the next level. Changes in education signals the market what you do. It's the admission to whatever levels you need to be. You cannot be the head of an institution if you are not qualified. Even the politicians are starting to realize this. Okay. Certification is a very different thing. That's for skilling, reskilling. Okay. It is for changing focus. It is for bringing in a nuance on what you're doing. I want to understand this particular view, etc. You'll see a lot of the skilling companies are being sold off right now in the world. Earlier this week, Udacity was bought by Accenture, yeah, because they're providing vocational skill. Okay, in a changing world, I need to understand AI. I'm going to do a certification for AI. If I made my degree AI, actually in 1993. That's what I studied. I studied bachelor of science and ended up doing computer science, in which we were doing AI, the early versions of it. Yeah, it means that where I'm now, I can lead with it. Yes, but I started 20 years ago leading with it. Yeah, that is the difference between education and training.